According to General Hospital teasers, Willow Tate may move back in with Drew Cain in exchange for a visitation agreement from Wiley and Amelia Corinthos. Willow is quickly falling back into Drew's twisted web of deceit. In addition to allowing Drew to embrace her, she later called him and admitted she needed his help getting her children back. Willow may meet with Drew between August 25th and August 29th, as she is planning to make an offer to someone. According to GH teasers, Drew may be the recipient, therefore let's think about Willow's proposal. Willow might agree to move back in with Drew because he really wants her to return home. Perhaps Willow will take the initial move and offer a full reunion if Drew agrees to help her see her children. Willow's ultimate goal is to reclaim custody rights, but visitation is the more immediate problem now. Willow can't bear being completely shut off from Amelia and Wiley, so she'll do almost anything to see them again. Willow might reassure Drew that she is willing to put the past behind them if he can truly fix everything for her. Drew may promise Willow visits as soon as possible before focusing on regaining custody. Whatever the case, Willow will make an offer in the August 27th episode, while Drew will threaten Michael Corinthos the next day. Drew will try to back Michael into another corner, so there will be a lot more hostility. On August 29th, Elizabeth Baldwin will receive some unexpected news. Will Liz find out that Willow is no longer her houseguest and that she is moving back in with Drew? Elizabeth may receive updates and raise the alarm about why this is a horrible idea. Rick Lansing may do the same, given Nina Reeves' request for his assistance in keeping Willow and Drew apart. Unfortunately, General Hospital spoilers indicate that Willow may revert to old habits and refuse to listen to anybody other than Drew, at least for now. According to General Hospital spoilers, Drew Cain develops a new enemy nearly every day. Drew recently fired Martin Gray because he refused to sign a witness statement that accused Michael Corinthos of attacking the congressman. Martin is upset with Drew because he assigned investigators to investigate into Stella Henry's alleged insurance fraud activity. However, Martin is not the only one who has a grudge against Drew. Who shot Drew Cain? With a suspect pool that might fill the police station lobby, it appears that someone will shortly try Drew's life. It remains to be seen whether they are successful, but someone will almost certainly try to put an end to Drew once and for all. Michael would undoubtedly be at the top of the suspect list, but he is far from the only person who despises Drew enough to attempt to kill him. Curtis Ashford's feud with Drew, as well as his hatred for Nina Reeves, has made for a popular site. Ada Turner has seen Drew Cain's true colors. Although she was formerly exclusively dedicated on bringing Sonny Corinthos down, Ada Justine Turner has just witnessed Drew's effort to extort Sonny for personal gain. Turner has contacted Police Commissioner Anna Devane to begin creating a case against Drew, knowing that any complaint cannot come straight from her. Maybe they'll begin with his effort to frame Tracy Quartermaine for drugging him. Will Drew Cain be murdered or imprisoned? At this point, it's anyone's guess whether they'll be able to gather enough information against Drew before someone decides to take action. Most likely, a warrant will be issued for Drew, but instead of apprehending him, officers will discover Drew dead or gravely injured. It's a race against time at this point, and Drew should hope to be apprehended before he dies. What are your thoughts? Is there enough proof to convince Drew? Has Drew created too many enemies? Who do you think will eventually take Drew out? Anything can happen in Port Charles, so stay tuned to General Hospital, which airs weekdays on ABC. Willow sat on the edge of her bed, staring blankly at the folded piece of paper in her fingers, her heart hammering as if it were attempting to escape from her chest. The letter was brief, but the contents were enough to turn her entire world upside down. Drew's name was at the bottom, his familiar handwriting smeared over the page, carrying the weight of everything she had been trying to avoid for weeks. He wasn't asking for forgiveness this time. He was giving her a bargain that would put her right back in his orbit, a place she wasn't sure she could handle emotionally. It wasn't just about them. It was about Wiley and Amelia. Michael's refusal to compromise had built a wall Willow couldn't climb, and Drew, sensing an opening, stepped in with an offer that left her shaken. Move back in with him, help restore what they had, and in exchange, he'd ensure Michael consented to enhance the kids' visiting rights. It wasn't about love, as she kept reminding herself. It involved strategy, survival, and sacrifice. She recalled the long evenings spent pacing her kitchen, the solitary hours spent avoiding Michael's stare, and the continual agony in her chest whenever Amelia grieved for her father or Wiley asked why everyone looked so angry all the time. Port Charles wasn't simply full of secrets anymore, it was choked with them. And now, she had to make a decision that would either heal or destroy what was remained of her family. When she finally contacted Drew, her voice quivered but was firm enough to persuade him she'd made up her mind. "I'll do it," she said quietly into the phone, almost as if she were confessing a crime. There was a long gap on his end, with the sound of his quick inhalation breaking through the silence like glass. He didn't gloat or celebrate, he merely said softly, "You're doing the right thing for Wiley and Amelia." But even over the phone, she could hear a hint of something else in his tone, victory, perhaps, or hope. Moving back inside Drew's penthouse felt like reliving a memory she wasn't ready to face. Everything about the place was consistent, the clean lines of the furniture, the steady buzz of the metropolis outside the windows, and the framed images of happier times. Drew had left everything intact, like if he had been waiting for her to return, even though she had sworn she would never go. She grabbed her bag tightly, her fingers biting into the handle as she pushed herself to go inside, her heart pounding faster than her steps. Drew welcomed her in the living room, his face serene but enigmatic. He didn't reach for her or try to embrace her, and she appreciated that. "You can have the guest room," he simply stated, his voice low and controlled. It doesn't have to be complicated, but they both knew it was. Nights at the penthouse were filled with unspoken words, and the air between them was dense with tension that neither of them dared to express. Willow remained to herself, immersed in her literature or concentrating on her hospital shifts, anything to avoid the lingering weight of Drew's presence. But Drew wasn't one to stay silent for long. He began dropping subtle clues, casual statements intended to test her boundaries. A faint reminder of the late-night conversations they used to have on the couch. A fleeting hint of the dreams they had before everything fell apart. Willow felt an old ache bubbling beneath the surface, despite her best efforts to keep her heart safe. But every time her chest clenched at the sound of his voice, she reminded herself why she was there. Amelia. Wiley. The promise that this agreement would bring stability to their small world. Michael was enraged when she told him, accusing her of being tricked and falling right into Drew's trap. "This isn't about you," she yelled back, her voice quivering from exhaustion. "It's about the children, Michael. They need to have both of us in their lives, without a continual war looming over them." Michael didn't understand, perhaps he couldn't. He'd been fighting Drew for so long, with each interaction being a war of control, hatred, and suspicion. Drew's vow was just another ploy to get deeper into Willow's life. But for Willow, it was the only option that didn't include Wiley and Amelia growing up in the midst of a never-ending custody battle. It wasn't simple, however. The murmurs in Port Charles spread as quickly as fire. Everyone held an opinion. Brooke Lynn took her aside in the Metro court, her voice keen with concern. "Willow, what are your thoughts? You are putting yourself right back in his grasp. You don't owe Drew anything." Willow was no longer interested in defending herself. She didn't need the world to understand her, all she needed was to keep her family together, even if it meant sacrificing her own comfort and heart. Nonetheless, she couldn't ignore the shift between herself and Drew as the days turned into weeks. There were times when he softened, his voice low and sensitive in a way she hadn't heard in years. He'd inquire about her day, offer to cook supper, or sit quietly on the couch while she browsed images of Wiley and Amelia. Sometimes she caught him staring at her when he thought she wasn't looking, that silent longing she recalled flickering behind his eyes. Willow approached him one evening, as the windows rattled from a summer storm. "We agreed this isn't about us," she continued, her voice cracking from the strain of holding herself together. I'm here because of the children, Drew. That's all. He nodded, his jaw set, but then took a step closer, his voice thick with unsaid emotion. I understand why you're here. But you can't deny that you feel it, too. Being around you again is like remembering what it's like to breathe. She wanted to shout and shove him away, but instead froze. Because, as much as she tried to deny it, a part of her felt it, the same gravitational pull that had once held them together. But she also remembered the sorrow, betrayal, and never-ending cycle of broken promises that had led them here. Days later, Michael arrived at the penthouse unannounced and demanded to speak. The scene was chaotic, the tension evident as the two men stood face to face, their words low but nasty. Michael accused Drew of influencing Willow, and Drew responded that Michael was too stubborn to realize what was best for the children. Willow stood between them, her hands trembling as she forced her voice to remain steady. This has to stop, she stated forcefully. I will not let either of you use me as leverage again. This is about Wiley and Amelia, not you two attempting to win a war. But even after Michael went, the harm remained. The weight of her decisions pressed in from all sides, making the apartment walls appear smaller. Willow sat awake that night, staring at the ceiling and wondering if she had made the biggest mistake of her life. Then came the pivotal moment. Wiley asked her whether she and Amelia could reunite as they had before. The question broke her, leaving her breathless as she attempted to soothe him without making promises she could not make. Drew, who overheard from the doorway, simply went away, his face pallid and drawn. Later, he made an unexpected idea. Maybe it's time we stopped pretending this is only about custody, he added gently. Maybe what the kids need is for us to figure out who we are to each other, once and for all. Willow did not immediately respond. She could not. Because, beneath her aggravation, tiredness, and dread, there was a glimmer of something she thought she had long forgotten. But love, real, complicated, messy love, has a way of surviving even the most severe wound. And, as much as she wanted to deny it, Drew's presence forced her to face the fact she'd been avoiding for months. The days ahead would bring more confrontations, secrets, and painful decisions. But as Willow watched Drew play with Wiley and hug Amelia, she noticed, for the first time in a long time, the faint trace of the family they used to fantasize about. It wasn't flawless, or simple, but it was theirs. And perhaps moving back in with Drew was more than just keeping a promise. Perhaps it was about returning to herself, to them, and to a future she was unwilling to abandon. Willow awoke the next morning to the sound of mild rain tapping against the windows, the steady pattern providing weird solace against the tempest rising inside her heart. The night before had left her restless, with Drew's remarks, Michael's rage, and Wiley's naive request for a family that no longer existed, at least not in the way he desired. She crept silently out of bed and padded across the icy floor to the living room, where Drew's silhouette was illuminated by the faint glimmer of city lights. He sat on the couch, elbows on his knees, hands clutched together, as if the weight of the world rested on his shoulders. Willow debated strolling past him and going to the kitchen for a cup of tea, pretending she hadn't noticed he was awake. But something stopped her. Perhaps it was the tiredness in his posture, or the tenderness in his voice from the previous night. Whatever it was, she found herself entering the living room, her voice soft but steady. "Can't sleep?" she inquired gently. Drew looked up, his blue eyes meeting hers for a brief moment before returning to the window. "Not really," he confessed. "Feels like there's too much at stake right now to close my eyes." Willow slid herself against the couch arm, her arms clasped tightly across her chest. "You mean Michael," she answered, but it sounded more like an accusation than a question. Drew did not refute it. "Michael does not trust me. He never has, and perhaps never will. But, Willow, this is not about him. It's about what's best for the kids, and whether we're ready to go to any length to provide them with the stability they deserve." His words paused between them, and Willow felt a sting of remorse prickling at the back of her throat. She despised how right he sounded, how much sense his strategy made when her emotions shouted for another option. But the fact was simple: they'd been at war for so long that collateral damage had spread to Wiley and Amelia. The children absorbed all difficult exchanges, furious arguments, and whispered conversations regarding decision-making authority. And Willow couldn't take it anymore. But as much as she desired serenity, she couldn't deny the keen edge beneath Drew's serene demeanor. He wasn't doing this out of genuine selflessness. No, a part of him still desired what they had lost, and whether she admitted it or not, a part of her still missed it. "Drew," she murmured gently, her voice wavering despite her efforts to remain calm, "I need to know something. If I stay here, can you promise not to expect more than I can provide right now?" Drew paused, his mouth stiffening, but eventually nodded. "I can promise to try," he added gently. "But Willow, you should know something." Her breath froze in her throat. "What is it?" He turned to face her directly, his look unreserved in a way she wasn't expecting. "I didn't only make Michael agree to more visitation. There's more to this arrangement than you know." Her stomach fell, and the room became colder. "What do you mean?" Drew stroked the back of his neck, evidently unable to find the appropriate words. "Michael and I had a private arrangement. I gave up something significant to make this happen, something I've been fighting for since I left Pentonville." Willow stared at him, her heart pounding in her ears. "What have you given up, Drew?" When he eventually responded, his voice was quiet and almost forlorn. "ELQ. My shares, my control, everything. I backed away from the struggle for that company, so Michael could no longer use it as leverage." Willow blinked, stunned to stillness. Drew saw ELQ as more than simply a business. It was his identity, his legacy, and the last piece of himself he'd held onto after losing everything. It was unimaginable that he would give it up, especially to Michael. And yet, he had done it. For her. For the children. "Why haven't you told me?" she muttered, her throat tightening. "Because I knew you'd feel guilty," Drew stated simply. "And I did not want this to be about debt or sacrifice. I wanted it to be about doing what's best for Wiley and Amelia." Willow turned away, her hands grabbing the side of the couch to regulate her breathing. She couldn't decide whether to be grateful or angry, relieved or afraid. But, behind the torrent of emotions, one thing became painfully clear: Drew was in deeper than she realized, and this shaky arrangement was already costing them more than any of them had expected. The days that followed simply made things more complex. Michael, despite their agreement, could not conceal his contempt. Every time they exchanged Wiley at the Quartermain home or planned Amelia's schedule, his clipped tone and pointed eyes made it brutally clear that their animosity would not be resolved. Nina, on the other hand, was determined to involve herself in the matter, whether Willow wanted her to or not. She cornered Willow at the hospital one afternoon, her voice low and accusatory. "So, you're living with Drew now," Nina replied, folding her arms. "Is this your concept of stability? Trading one man for another while claiming it's all for the children?" Willow froze, her grip tightening on the patient chart in her hands. "This is not about you, Nina. And it isn't about me either. It's about Wiley and Amelia, something you'd understand if you quit treating everything as a personal attack." Nina refused to back down. "I'm not the one dragging my kids into the middle of a custody battle," she protested. "You have made your choices, Willow. Just remember who's going to pay for them." The words pained Willow, not because she believed them, but because they mirrored the same worries she'd been harboring in her heart. Was she really doing this for the kids, or was she lying to herself to justify returning to Drew's life? Willow sat on the balcony one evening as the summer heat lingered to the air, watching Port Charles's lights glimmer against the dark sky. Drew joined her silently, resting on the railing beside her with his hands in his pockets. "You've barely said a word tonight," he replied quietly. "I've been thinking," Willow said. "What about us?" he inquired, his tone cautious. "About everything," she clarified, though they both understood what she meant. "Michael, Wiley, Amelia, and yeah, you." Drew exhaled deeply, his shoulders slumping. "I understand this isn't what you wanted. But I also know you're here because you truly believe this is the best route ahead. Willow, I can accept your anger, hesitancy, and walled-off behavior. What I can't bear is losing the opportunity to make this right, for you, the kids, and us." She turned to face him, her chest clenching at the silent desperation in his expression. For a brief time, she saw the man she had fallen for years before, the man who had once restored her faith in love after so much pain. And this terrified her. Because, despite the agony and betrayal, she still wanted to believe in him. Before she could react, Drew's phone rang on the table behind them. He hesitated before picking it up, and his face paled as he read the message. "What is it?" Willow inquired, her voice keen with concern. Drew gazed at her with a gloomy frown. "Michael just filed a motion with the court," he explained gently. Willow's heart plummeted as she heard, "He's challenging the visitation agreement." "But, we made an agreement." "You said," "I know," Drew interrupted, his voice strained. "But Michael's not playing by the same rules anymore." At that point, everything changed. The fragile ceasefire they'd established was dissolving in before their eyes, and Willow understood they were on the verge of another conflict, one that could rip their family apart for good this time. And as the rain returned, slamming harder against the glass, Willow realized with grim certainty that her choices were insufficient to keep the peace. To protect Wiley and Amelia, she and Drew would have to fight together. But she couldn't deny the frightening fact hovering in the shadows. Every step closer to Drew took her further away from Michael, and the deeper she sank back into Drew's world, the more difficult it would be to escape again. What she didn't know, and no one in Port Charles did, was that Drew had one last secret, one he'd been keeping since the day he walked out of Pentonville. When the truth was revealed, it would not only alter the relationship between her, Drew, and Michael, but also imperil their entire existence. Anna stood by the window of her office, peering out at the rain-soaked streets of Port Charles, her mind racing with uncontrollable ideas. The last several weeks had been a flurry of chaos and secrets, and no matter how she attempted to compartmentalize it, Drew Kane's name remained at the top of her list. Too many coincidences. Too many loose endings. Too much is at stake. When the door opened, she didn't need to turn around to see who it was. Ada Turner came inside, her high heels tapping on the gleaming floor. "You called," she replied, her tone stern yet interested. Anna breathed and turned, arms crossed across her chest. "I think it's time we stop playing defense and start making a move of our own," she told me. "Drew Kane has been operating under the radar for far too long, and I'm convinced he's hiding something that is directly related to what happened with the Corinthos shipment last month." Turner's brow raised slightly as she placed her briefcase on the desk. "Are you telling me that you finally have evidence? Because for me to go after him without substantial evidence is a nightmare waiting to happen." "Not yet," Anna said, her voice low and steady. "But I have enough strands to know they will lead somewhere dangerous. And, if I'm correct, Drew isn't simply working against us, he's orchestrating something much bigger. I want you to help me build a case before he can cover his tracks." Turner paused, looking around the room to make sure no one else was listening. "You understand what you are proposing, right? Drew Kane has resources. Allies. If we start tugging on this thread and he gets wind of it, he'll come after us hard. He won't just sit back and let us pick him apart. That's why we can't afford to make mistakes, Anna said, her voice pinched with steely resolve. This needs to be precise. Controlled. Turner examined her for a long period before reluctantly nodding. All right. Let's say I'm in. Where do we start? Anna grabbed a folder from her desk and handed it to her. Inside, there were surveillance images, financial documents, and intercepted messages. Drew has been funneling money into offshore accounts using several aliases. He claims it is for ELQ expansions, although none of these entities actually exist. Then there's his connection to Curtis Probe from last month. He knew about the Port Charles port explosion before anyone else. Turner scanned through the papers, her gaze tightening. Do you think Drew organized that? I believe he had a hand in it, Anna stated firmly. And if we can prove that, it's enough to drag him into court. The room fell silent for a moment, interrupted only by the muffled buzz of distant rain. Turner closed the folder and stared Anna dead in the eyes. Okay, I'll start putting the pieces together from a legal aspect. But I need more than suspicion. We'll need a credible witness or a trail of evidence that can be verified. I'm already working on it, Anna assured her. Jason's kept his distance, but I know he has information. Jocelyn has access to Dalton's phone, and there is speculation that Drew has been in communication with someone overseas. Turner twisted his lips into a slight smirk. So you want me to do this quietly? There are no official subpoenas yet. No formal investigations. Not yet, Anna replied. If Drew detects the scent, he'll bury everything before we can reach it. We need to box him in gradually, making him believe he's untouchable, until it's too late. The ADA tapped her manicured nails against the desk, thinking. All right. But let me be clear, Anna, if we proceed down this road, there will be no turning back. Drew Kane has pals in high places. And if he discovers what we're doing, he'll use them all against us. Anna's eyes darkened with determination. I'm counting on it. Over the next few days, their plan began to come together. Turner worked late into the night, going over Drew's finances, while Anna coordinated with her network of silent spies throughout Port Charles. A few leads emerged quickly, whispers of Drew's meetings at the Savoy, encrypted messages routed through offshore servers, and a sudden rise in transactions involving shell firms registered in Belize. Late one evening, Anna received a phone call that altered everything. It was Jocelyn. Her voice quivered, but her information was reliable. Dalton's phone. Drew's been texting someone labeled K. I don't know who they are, but the last message said, it's done. He won't be a problem anymore, Anna said, her chest tightening. Send me the screenshots, she said, her mind already racing. A message like that could indicate a cover-up, possibly implicating Sunny's region. When she met with Turner the following morning, she laid everything on the table. The ADA studied the messages before looking up slowly, her jaw stiff. This isn't just about financial misbehavior anymore. If Drew is involved in the elimination of witnesses, we have a criminal conspiracy. This opens the door for a federal takedown. Anna nodded, her face bleak. That implies we need absolute confirmation before making a move. Drew is intelligent. He is careful. He knows just how far he can go without leaving fingerprints. But everyone slips at some point. Turner leaned back in her chair, thinking aloud. If we can't get him directly, then we can go after the others he works with. Cut off his support system in pieces. Make him desperate. Desperation leads to blunders. Anna smiled faintly. I was hoping you'd say that. They began small. A discreet request to freeze a questionable offshore account. A controlled disclosure about ELQ's supposed financial problems. A planted tip diverted Drew's focus away from his true vulnerabilities. They probed his defenses piece by piece, looking for weaknesses. They immediately found one. Turner learned that one of Drew's shell businesses was linked to a private security service, which had recently made a large payment to an unregistered entity operating in Port Charles. When they traced it, they discovered a connection to a man named Kyle Brennan, a fixer known for handling problems quietly. "This is it," Turner explained, sliding the paperwork across Anna's desk. "We flip Brennan, and we get Drew on conspiracy, obstruction, and racketeering." Anna frowned, cautiously. "Brennan doesn't speak easily. People like him are loyal till the money runs out." Turner responded bitterly. That night, Anna planned for Brennan to be picked up secretly. There were no charges or formal arrests, only a quiet talk in an unmarked office. Brennan initially acted tough, stating he had no idea who Drew Kane was. But as Anna slid the offshore payment records across the table and Turner leaned in, offering immunity in return for cooperation, the fixer paused. "Look," Brennan said finally, his voice low and hesitant. "I don't know the whole picture. Drew is not the person you believe he is. He's setting up someone huge. Someone dangerous. He believes that by taking down this person, he will get control of everything they leave behind." "Who?" Anna demanded. Brennan shakes his head. "I do not know. But whatever he has planned, it will happen soon." When Brennan left, Turner and Anna exchanged a look that revealed they were running out of time. The next element of their plan needed to be implemented flawlessly. Turner prepared preliminary warrants, which were hermetically sealed to prevent leakage. Anna organized a secret squad to track Drew's whereabouts around the clock. Nothing went undetected at the Savoy, including every meeting, phone call, and quiet conversation. But Drew was clever. Too clever. Instead of hiding, he grew more outspoken, making public moves that caught everyone off guard. He unexpectedly donated to the Port Charles Police Department, openly spoke with high-profile businessmen, and even challenged Sonny in a premeditated show of confidence. He seemed to be aware that someone was circling him and daring them to try. Turner expressed his worry initially. What if he already knows we're preparing a case? Anna hesitated before responding. Then we're exactly where he wants us, unless we get ahead of him. Her next move was risky but vital. She set up a private meeting with Jason, knowing he was one of the few people Drew trusted, and one of the few who might betray him without Drew realizing it. When Jason eventually consented to meet, his remarks chilled her. "You don't know what you're walking into, Anna," he told her. "Drew has been planning this for months. He's playing a game that no one else realizes is taking place. And if you push too much, you will force his hand. When that happens, there will be no winners." Anna came away from that meeting more persuaded than ever that Drew Kane wasn't just hiding his tracks, he was plotting a power grab that could tip the scales in Port Charles. And if she and Turner don't act quickly, it will be too late to stop him. By the end of the week, the trap had been set. Surveillance is in place. The warrant is ready. Backup is in standby. All that was left was to wait for Drew's next move. And when he did, Anna assured herself that she would be prepared. Because in Port Charles, there were no second chances. Not for Drew Kane. Not this time.